What's up, everybody? Welcome back to college football's last call, week 14, which means we have somehow reached the end of the 2024 regular season. And what a season it has been, punctuated by an epic, and I mean epic, Dogs Friday night 8 overtime victory between the Hedges against those hated Yellow Jackets from North Avenue. Big show for all you guys out there tonight. As always, we have our guy Jason Gans. We have Big Lair back from his trip to Spain and anxious to hear how that vacation was. And to top it all off, we're lucky enough to have a special guest join us tonight. We have our friend Peter Taaffe, who you may recall from a few weeks back is the host of the Dirty Verdict podcast and a big Texas Longhorn fan. Peter was kind enough to join us on the show in advance of the upcoming UGA Texas rematch. So, Peter, appreciate you being here tonight. Gentlemen, another great weekend in college football. It's great to see y'all's faces.
Hey,
Likewise.
happy to be back. Apologies for missing last week. I did listen on a train ride from Marbella to Barcelona. You guys did a wonderful job. I got my white belt certification in flamenco lessons, ate my weight in ham, and quite honestly, a great experience watching the Georgia Tech game with my son Sam. We had two rooms in the hotel. Told my wife in advance we were going to go back to the hotel after dinner. I was going to take a brief cat nap, and we were going to watch the game on my phone. So Sam and I woke up at 1:30 in the morning Spain time, and we watched what I have now heard and referred to, and I like it, called it clean old-fashioned eight with the eight overtime game. It wrapped up around 6 a.m. Spain time. Got about 45 minutes of sleep after that before we woke up, packed, and headed to the airport to fly home. So, what a hell of a game! We snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, and then once again left the Jackets crying foul and complaining about the referees once again. The damn zebras.
Larry, that's some serious dedication, and I'm proud of you. Flamenco never sleeps. You went on your mission, and you still got to see the dogs. I believe two dogs games while you're overseas, so congrats on that. I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Maybe got some rest, relaxation, whatever rest and relaxation you got was probably pissed away come midnight on Friday night because that thing took a lot out of me. I sent my wife and her sister out to dinner, and I said I'd watch the kids and my nieces, and I'd watch the game in my study and just kind of relax. And shit, I was wrong. They came home. We were rolling into the fourth quarter, and I had to make a few trips down to the basement to get more beer. I was mentally, physically exhausted. I can only imagine how those players played. But look, got the W. Before we do get into the game, I thought Haynes King, credit where credit is due. That kid was an absolute warrior. I mean, that was an epic performance. Georgia Tech is not a bad football team, and I don't say that just because they gave us fits. They really improved. They're on the right track with Brent Key. Not something I particularly love, but credit where credit's due.
Yeah, they were so tired afterwards that they didn't have the energy to like get into a big massive brawl like happened every game on Saturday.
That's a
That's
good
right.
point, man. Rivalry week lived up to the definitions in this title, right? I mean, every time we look around, there's a fight breaking out after one of these games, and frankly, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more, right? I mean, these teams are worked up into a frenzy for 364 days. They play 60 minutes of a physical game, and then we expect them to just shake hands and sing "Kumbaya." So, surprised it doesn't happen more. But yeah, I mean, you guys said it, right? I mean, 8 overtimes, range of emotions. We're going to win in overtime. We're going to lose in overtime. I mean, I get it why they go to that 2 point conversion now thing after the third overtime, but my God, that is just as stressful as it gets. That one play will determine the outcome. Buster Faulkner, somebody whose name is brought up a lot. People, he used to be at Georgia. People want him to come back at Georgia. He's now at Georgia Tech. I thought he called a great game. I thought they did a great job at offense. Thought in overtime, he really got away from it, though. I mean, I thought there were several times where, they could have just done their running, hand it to Haynes King, do his RPO, and the game would have been over. But every time they dropped back to pass, I kind of thought they gave us a gift. But yeah, watching that, none of us were in the game. I've talked to my friends that were, and they just said it was just absolutely bananas. Has to go down as one of the best, if not the best, Georgia Tech games of all time, right?
Oh, hands down. I mean, and listen, credit where credit is due. I agree with Gans. Brent Key's got that program going in the right direction. Haynes King played great. The one thing that I noticed outside of the fact that I think Carson Beck probably played one of his best games of the year is Buster Faulkner again coached circles around Schumann. But once we got to late in the fourth quarter, we finally made adjustments. And during the overtime, Kirby, I think, got more hands-on with the play-to-play calls than he has all year. And he was playing, I mean, he was playing chess while Brent Key was playing checkers with calling timeouts once they got in formation. He was signaling to players, and you saw them, break through the gaps like the play that Dan Jackson had with a sack, CJ Allen in overtime. And we came through when we needed to. This is a team where, we've talked all year about the identity of this team. We know they start slow. We know we drop a lot of passes. Sometimes we feel that maybe there's a little bit of a sense of entitlement that this team has that others didn't. But this is a team that never says die. You cannot count them out. And I think, Josh, as you mentioned earlier in the intro, I think we officially hit like Dodgers, Yankees, Duke, Alabama status on Saturday night with everybody in the country now hating the University of Georgia and wanting to see us lose. And
Well, I want to ask Peter about that. If I
I
can
for one
jump
am happy to wear that heel black hat.
if I can jump in, Peter, ask you about that. I mean, we texted today, and you stayed up and watched the game, and you're a sports fan, you're a college football fan, but not a Georgia Tech fan. I felt like the whole country was rooting for Georgia Tech. I felt like, as Laurence put it, it was the Yankees, it was the Dodgers, that kind of thing. When you're watching it, Peter, what are you thinking, and what is your impression of the game?
I was I was not taking a side. I was just enjoying just the pure football and the competition. Either way, I guess if I thought about it, I would have said, I mean, not just because y'all are all Georgia guys, but would want y'all to win just because it makes this game that we're going to play even better. But I was just totally and thoroughly entertained. We started at a party, and then I went and saw my son at the team hotel, watched the end of the regulation there, went back to the party, watched all the overtimes. It was just completely entertaining.
Well, Peter, you got to like so in that game, we've got a 6-year walk-on named Dan Jackson, Dirty Dan, Thunder Dan, and he has played absolutely out of his mind. And he won the game for us, quite frankly. Without him, we don't win that game. But I got to think that hits home for you a little bit, right?
Yeah, he's a former walk-on as well.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. I love the way he plays. I noticed him long before we were on the last time. I guess did he was there like a targeting call that I think was not
He got
made on him?
ejected against Texas.
Okay, that was it. Yeah, but then didn't he have one in this last game
The,
that people
the
were
play that
complaining
the
about?
play that he made on Haynes King with like 2 minutes left, the Tech had the ball 1 yard to go to basically seal the game. Dan Jackson went helmet to football. Haynes King from the angle, his head kind of bounced back. There was calls all over social media, Twitter. Every Georgia Tech fan in the world wanted it to be reviewed for targeting. They reviewed. I think they reviewed it. I think they went to the booth. They didn't call targeting. Chaz Chambliss picked up the loose ball, and then Carson Beck let us down, touchdown to Dom Lovett. And then one of the coolest things I thought was the video replay after the touchdown when Cash Money Jones came, jumped up top, smacked Dom Lovett on the helmet, and the fireworks went off. He got the fireworks button, Gans.
So,
Well, and to that point, Cash Jones is another former walk-on. He's actually from just outside of Houston, I believe. And he's probably the offensive player. Besides Carson Beck, he was probably the offensive player of the game for us.
you guys just nailed it. And the three names that y'all just brought up were the three names I had written down. Dan Jackson, Cash Jones, Chaz Chambliss. Like those were the difference makers. And those are the last people when this season started, you look at on the depth chart or when they were recruited, or when they walked on and expect them to be who we see making plays in 2024. At the same time, you got former five-star Julian Humphrey, leaving the program today. So it just shows you, man, it's like depth is where it's at. The guys that want to be there, that love the school. They step up in big games like this, and I, for one, was happy to see it, obviously. Carson Beck, we've been dogging him out for weeks and weeks. He's played pretty damn good the last few weeks, guys. I mean, the drops, he was visibly frustrated by them. How can you not be? But when push came to shove, man, he made the plays, and good on him.
Well, it's sad that potentially our best wide receiver right now is Cash Jones, which is a bit scary. Now Carson's played really, really well since the Ole Miss game. He went through that stretch between Texas, he wasn't good. Florida, he wasn't good. Ole Miss, he wasn't good. But you know what? If there's a time to peak, maybe this is the time to peak. Get some confidence in him. Maybe our receivers could start catching the ball. That would be nice. The tight ends have come on well as of late. Nate Frazier, his stats weren't great, but he looked really good. We rotated running backs quite a bit, which I didn't particularly love. He's coming on. The offensive line's looking better. So, I mean, I say this about Georgia. Georgia can lose to almost any team in the country in Power Five, but we could also beat any team in the country in Power Five. So, which team's going to show up?
What did y'all think about the embrace at the end of the game in the middle of the field between Brent Key and Kirby? Pretty cool, huh? I mean, both those guys were just emotionally, physically, everything was spent. That was a pretty nice embrace that they shared. I will say this about Kirby though, like he was kind of chilling on the sidelines during the game, during the overtime, hands in his hoodie pockets, just kind of chilling. He's just so freaking awesome. But that was a really neat moment. Brent Key's got as you said, Gans has got the program going in the good direction. I think it's gonna be a tough game for years to come.
It's about time. I mean, I think football is better, at least for the state of Georgia. It's better when Tech is relevant, and for the past however many years, they haven't been. So, listen, I've been riding the jacket train all year, so I knew that we were going to have a battle. I did not expect them to come out and dominate us for 55 minutes like they did. But hey, a win is a win. We'll take it. And now we got bigger things ahead as we take on your Longhorns and Mercedes-Benz on Saturday, Peter.
So
Yeah,
go ahead, Peter.
go
Sorry.
ahead. I was just going to say, did Haynes King run that much before that game, or was that kind of a surprise that he put on like 30 carries?
No, he had been quite a bit. And in fact, the past few weeks, he's injured, which makes this story even better. They said his arm was about falling off from the shoulder. And so what they've been doing the past few weeks is actually running two quarterbacks, pretty much tipping their cap when Haynes King would be in, they'd run the ball. And then the backup, who allegedly pulled himself out because he wants to preserve his red shirt and transfer, didn't play. So Haynes King pretty much played the whole game. And yeah, no, he warrior.
Yeah, great
An
player.
old Texas A&M kid.
Mm-hmm.
So the benefit of playing Friday night was having Saturday where we could just kind of relax and enjoy watching the other games. There's a lot of games to look forward to, none bigger, Peter, than your Texas Longhorns taking on the Aggies. Saturday night, under the lights, waited all day for it. You were there in attendance. Your son plays defense for the team, starting player, big time player. So walk us through the environment, the experience, everything that went on that night.
Yeah, the I was telling the other, I went to Texas, grew up with that rivalry, so I went to that game a bunch, and kids had been, so Michael, my son, had been, and he knew kind of what it was about. But a lot of the players on the team didn't, they don't have that background, and so I was telling them like, get ready, get earplugs. It is going to be so loud. I can't even put it into context for you. You just got to see it. And so I think I kind of psyched myself and the rest of them out because they were like, I mean, it was loud, but DKR, I don't know, Jason, if what your experience was there. I mean, I feel like that was louder at times than A&M. It is a show. I mean, you've got the Corps cadets and everyone's got a white flag, except our little section, and they're waving that 24/7. They've got their choreographed cheers, with the yell leaders, and that's cool spectacle. I mean, of course, Texas people hate it and think it's, what do they call them, goobs or something, but I respect it because they all do it in line, and they came out. Everyone was hot. I think our play really or their play and our play kind of took the air out of the stadium kind of early. That fourth down stop kind of took them down a little bit, and then Sun had an interception, and then we came down and Arch then scored. So you're getting all the momentum was our way, and it kind of stayed that way until that one pick six, or it was tip ball, and they returned it, and that got them a little bit of life. And then they got that fumble, a little bit of life, block punt, a little bit of life, but they just could not do anything with those opportunities. And they just felt like, they were snake bit, I think, from the friends of mine I've talked to. They're just like, Big Brother just always has our number, which I grew up, A&M beat us more than we beat them when I was growing up. So I don't subscribe to that Big Brother, little brother narrative. They were always better than us. So I was feeling like they're going to come back and do something. I mean, it was close. If Elko, takes a couple field goals early, and then now it's a 17, 13 game, it's a whole different dynamic when they've got the ball at the end. So I think we were good. I think if you overall, I think looked like we outplayed them, but we did give them some opportunities to get back in it.
Yeah, y'all's defense was really stout. That fourth down stop on that first drive was huge because they did convert, right? They converted a fourth down first, and then
Think you're right, Jason. Yeah.
yeah, and then y'all stopped them on the next one. I was sitting at my club with a couple of cocktails, so my memory's not 100%. And then your son had a badass interception. That was like just ball hawk came across the field, so that was pretty awesome. But from my vantage point, it was a dominant defensive performance by Texas. Archer's touchdown run was pretty awesome, and then that catch in the back of the end zone that they had to review that was a great catch. But it was really, I thought it was a tale of Texas's defense, and I bet on Texas. Full disclosure, I thought Texas was certainly the better team going into it, but I wasn't sure how things would react at Kyle Field at night. Under those circumstances, that was sort of the wild card for me, and it didn't seem to really phase the Longhorns much. So I generally root for Texas when they're not playing Georgia or it doesn't affect Georgia. So I was happy to see that outcome. And to your point earlier, it makes this weekend even that much better.
Yeah, I think you guys said in your last one, I can't remember which one said this, that you're tired of, Georgia being everyone's Super Bowl every year, every week.
Yeah.
And we've got the same thing. We feel the same way at Texas. So everyone's taking their best shot, which is why I think this weekend will be great because we're both going to be taking our best shot at each other. Now, obviously, y'all killed us or beat us pretty good last time. So I think hopefully we figure some things out this time around.
Well, it might not be the last one this season either.
True.
We talk a lot about Texas A&M on this show. It just so happens that way. The last couple of years, they've just been kind of fun to poke at. As you know, we've named a segment after their old coach. But I don't think Laurence, Jason, we've never been to College Station, have we? I mean, I don't know anything really about the university or Kyle Field. Like, Peter, how is that as a town, as a college town?
It was always very small. When I was growing up, very few bars. The Dixie Chicken is the famous bar that everyone would go to. In the last 15 years or so, our governor, Rick Perry, big Aggie, he was a Yale leader, and he promoted the school and got a bunch of funding there. And that school has grown tremendously from a brick and mortar standpoint and from the school side. And then that brings in the hotels and the better restaurants and the bars. And so they've got a little area called Northgate, which is like like 6th Street or, in Austin, smaller version. But it's definitely gotten better. But it's still, I mean, very rural. That you drive 5 minutes out of town and you're looking at cows, all over the place. So it's got a ways to go, but it is night and day from when it was when I was growing up. I don't think it's a place that anyone would say is like an Athens or an Oxford or Tuscaloosa, but it has the making of it. It'll be there in that play, in like 10, 15 years.
Nice.
With all due respect to Rick Perry, I used to do work with his son. Griffin is a nice guy
yeah.
and friend. Yeah, really. We've done some work together in the past. I got to ask you about this. I'm going to pull it up here. Hopefully you can see it, or maybe you can't.
It's in the
It's
blur.
the Yale leaders and their practice. My Zoom is blurring it out, but there's just some weird stuff going on Friday night.
Yeah. Oh, I saw that plenty online.
Oh God, that was cringeworthy.
Yeah, I mean, see, that's the thing. I'm jaded because I grew up with seeing it, so that doesn't faze me. But yeah, for y'all looking at it at age 40 plus for the first time, yeah, it doesn't seem to jive with the military Corps cadets kind of tough guy image, but it's tradition and that is a huge honor to be a Yale leader in the Corps. Like, there's a big competition for it, and it's like, I think their character is measured, not just their style points on their moves. And so those guys who get it, those are the cream of the crop. Like people in the Corps of Cadets.
You want to take back all your negative slander about them now, Gans? These people are really
No,
good people, high character, worked hard to get there. You've been
no,
dogging
no,
them for
no.
3 years.
I have a serious problem with men in overalls in
Yeah,
Yeah,
general.
I think
I
you should dress
completely
up as
see
a
your
yell leader for Halloween next year.
Yeah. So
I
Lawrence,
completely see where you're coming from.
Lawrence, again, props to you, man, for being up in the middle of the night in Spain watching that game. I do not think I would have done the same thing. I like to think I would have, but I probably would have been fast asleep. You get home Saturday afternoon. Did you just melt on the couch watching games, or did you melt on the couch and not see anything? Because there's plenty of games we
So
can talk about, but would you even get taken any of it in?
So fortunately, Delta provided me with decent Wi-Fi. So on my 10-hour flight home, I was able to access the ESPN app. I watched South Carolina, Clemson, flip back and forth between that, Tennessee and Vanderbilt. I was not able to get the Michigan Ohio State game until we landed. Got home, ran a bunch of errands, and I sat down on the sofa to watch Texas A&M. And the next thing I know, I wake up on the sofa and it's 10:30, and so I didn't see much of the game other than the highlights. But by all accounts, everything you guys said was everything that I read was a defensive domination by the Horns. What I'm curious about, and we can get into this in a little bit. We can get into the preview for the game on Saturday. Is Ewers 100% healthy? We expect to see more Arch. Kind of what's the game plan look like? But we can table that for a little bit. But yeah, I did not see very much of the Longhorns game on Saturday night.
If you like that segue, Lawrence, go for it, man. There's no rules here. You brought it up. See what Peter has to say.
Yeah, well, he had some kind of brace on that was like some state of the art ankle brace that was heavily taped as well, and you could tell he was. I mean, he had a long run along the sideline, but I mean, he looked pretty gimpy on that run. And I think Sark said today, he's still kind of in the same boat he was in last week, where he's practicing and they think he looks fine, but it'll be day to day. I'm more. I'm just curious, and this kind of segues into the Haynes King thing. I think y'all talked about in your last episode. Uh, is your defense has not done as well against mobile quarterbacks, and Quinn, as great as he arm talent and all that, he's not known as a mobile quarterback or a running quarterback. Kind of a last resort is if he's running, it's flushed out of the pocket, running for his life to get whatever he can get. Arch and Josh, when you were on, I talked about Arch. He is a super fast runner. I think someone thought he ran faster than, can't remember if it was Tyreek Hill or
Tyreek.
yeah. He's super fast, super athlete. You saw that on the touchdown run he had. But he's also a great thrower. He's not just a good runner. So that was a surprise that they had packages for him. I think when we talked last, I think I said there's no way he's going to replace Quinn with Arch. He's going to ride with Quinn. Of course, in y'all's game, he did just that for at least a series to kind of get Quinn's, I think, kind of get him refocused. Sark said today that, he's got some plays that he hasn't debuted yet. He's going to open the book up against y'all, he says. So I suspect, just based on that, may see some more Arch. And actually, he did not throw. He played 3 plays. He ran each time. I suspect they probably, maybe have some throwing or passing plays set up. But he's, they kept Quinn's thing totally close to the vest. And incidentally, anything I say on here, I don't get anything from my son. Everything I get is from social media and from, Bobby Burton and On 3 Texas, Orange Bloods, those sites. But I don't, no one knew what was going to happen as far as who was going to start, who was going to play, until Pete Thamel put out a tweet earlier in the day where he said Quinn's going to play. He's still hobbled, but he's going to start. And that was as good an intel as I had heard from anyone, because Thamel's usually pretty, he's got pretty good sources. So,
Gans, why don't you take this? The Ewers versus
sure.
Arch Manning. What matchup's better for Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, you saw a lot of Georgia fans who didn't really have a dog in the fight between A&M and the Longhorns were rooting for Texas because the mobile quarterback has been a little bit of a thorn in our side. Part of that is we like to play press man coverage, and so when the receivers start running, the D-backs start running, there's nobody there, right? There's nobody there behind. So if you've got a play that breaks down and the quarterback, has legs and can scramble, that can be an issue. So, yeah, we would much rather have Quinn Ewers back there, not have to really if you don't have to manufacture pressure and you can just get pressure off the edges, with your 3 or 4 down line, then maybe bringing a linebacker that bodes very well into our defensive strategy. So for sure, we definitely match up better against Quinn Ewers. I would expect, Peter, to everything you said, that we will see some more rotation, if nothing else, than to just keep Georgia's defense honest, right? And make Georgia prepare, burn calories this week preparing for that running threat quarterback. I'm also of the opinion that if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback, right? So you got to be really careful in terms of how you kind of run them in and out. What I don't expect to happen, right? I was obviously thrilled with what happened last time and the pressure. I think Georgia had 7 sacks and a couple of strip sacks. Don't expect that to be the case this time. I got to assume that Sarkisian and the offensive line coach and whatever they scheme up is going to watch that film quite a bit and say, we might fucking lose, but it's not going to be this way, right? We're going to stop that. So I assume Kirby's going to do something different there too. So now I'm getting out over my skis. But yeah, that's just kind of my take on it.
You can't triple stamp a double stamp, Gans.
What's that?
I said you can't triple stamp a double stamp.
That's right.
I will say, though, that one thing for certain is we do not have any more 2-point plays that we're holding behind now. So all of those are on tape for you guys.
Yeah,
it's quite the chess match, right? I mean, whatever Kirby did last time absolutely worked. You saw the tide changing a little bit in the second half, but not all the way. So yeah, Stark makes adjustments, and now Kirby's got to adjust what he thinks adjustments might be. I mean, I'll say this. Our defense has not played as well as we played in that first half since then, right? I mean, I haven't heard Walker's name, Mikael Williams' name called really at all since that game against Texas. So, Peter, maybe we did view Texas as our Super Bowl because that's as good as we played all year from start to finish.
Your defense. Is it Jalen Walker?
Mm-hmm.
They just killed us. Yeah, he was all over the place. I got nightmares about him. But Beck. Yeah, I think y'all are saying this. I mean, he hadn't had an interception like the last 3 games, right?
Yeah, he's cleaned it up. I mean, there was a couple. I'm sitting in the stadium at DKR. I was talking to the Longhorn fans next to me, and what I noticed in the first half was Texas was trying to run sideline to sideline quite a bit, and that's a way to lose against Georgia. Nobody beats us sideline to sideline. The team is the defense is as fast as you can be, and I was like beating my head. I'm like, well, obviously I was happy about it. So that was one thing I don't expect to see. I expect to see Texas looking more vertical. And what specifically I expect to see is a lot of seam routes. Ole Miss had a ton of success just running slants against us, getting mismatches with tight ends on linebackers or running backs on linebackers. And it seems like y'all's tight end is having quite the season. And he did have a couple of really good catches against Georgia. And I would anticipate Texas really trying to utilize him in the middle of the field, right? That has been an area of weakness. And Georgia Tech had some success in that area. Ole Miss had a ton of success in that area. So I think that's something that we'll probably see Texas try to do a lot of this weekend.
So 10 to 15 years ago, the SEC championship game for us was as big as it got, right? I mean, all roads led to Atlanta. How do we get there? And if we got there, we're all primed, we're paying big money for tickets, we're all gonna make sure we be there. That's kind of diminished over the years, partly because we're a little jaded because we've fortunately been there a lot. But now, because this playoff picture, the way it's set up, it kind of diminishes to some degree even wanting to be in the game, right? I mean, there's a lot of Georgia fans in the last couple of weeks that have questioned if it's even a good thing that we're playing in this game. Curious from the Texas perspective. This is obviously y'all's first year in the SEC. Kudos for making the championship game first year. That's never been done before to my knowledge. So congrats to that. What is y'all's fan base and your team's perspective traveling to Atlanta, playing in this game with what's on the line?
Yeah, I agree with what y'all said last week. I mean, I think it's just you don't even think twice about it. I mean, you get an opportunity to go play in a championship game, you don't try to outthink it. There was a lot of chatter like, well, if we don't play in it, then we'll definitely get a bye. We'll be seated here or that. I think you just have to try to win every single game, period, and play in every single game you can get in and play a championship game if you can get it. If you start to outthink it and get cued, I think it bites you in the ass. So, I mean, yeah, we're pumped. We all scrambled to get our flights and hotels and everything right afterwards. Excited about it. Hope to hang a banner in our stadium when it's over. But I mean, that's usually most coaches, I think, start the same way. They set their goals. Like, we want to win every game, but we want to win our conference championship, and then we want to win the national championship. But first things first, conference championship. So we didn't even think twice about it. And we weren't in, we won the Big 12 on the way out the door, but we weren't in a ton of conference championships over the last 10, 15 years. So we're still in the camp of like, no, we're not used to it. We want to play in everyone we can.
Well, here's an interesting perspective that I heard this week, and I didn't really think about it. I mean, I did because everybody keeps hearing me say, losers whine about this and winners go home with the prom queen, right? But here's an interesting perspective, right? Whoever wins, both these teams are in the playoff. Okay, Georgia and Texas are both going to be in the playoff. And had Texas lost to Texas A&M, they still would have been in the playoff. Okay. However, the winner is not playing until December 31st or January 1st, right? So that's nice, right? And the loser has to play in 2 weeks. But even more so is the winner then only has to win 3 games to win the national championship. The loser has to win 4 games in a row. And it's really hard to win 4 games in a row, especially against, arguably the top 12 teams. It's probably not going to be the top 12 teams in the country, but let's just say for argument's sake it is. So just, winning that game and getting to then only have to play 3 games over 20 days rather than 4 over 28 is huge. I mean, that to the winner goes the spoils.
If we think that Oregon is the number 1 team, ranking says so, winning this game also puts you on the other side of the bracket as them, right? So you avoid Oregon in theory, at least until the end. Now, they might trip up against Penn State. They might not be world beaters, who knows, but you want to be on the other side. Laurence, you're usually pretty good at this. What do you think about the crowd inside of Mercedes-Benz? What kind of Texas-Georgia split do you expect?
Yeah, I think with this being Texas's first SEC championship, I'm assuming Peter, you and the Longhorns, Bernhorns will show up in droves. Typically, playing in Mercedes-Benz has been a little bit of a home field advantage for Georgia. I think we had Gans, you were at the game against Clemson. We outnumbered them. Excuse me. I think it'll probably be like, I don't know, 60-40 Georgia. Typically, I
Right.
think like 75-25. But I do think that you will see a lot of burnt orange traveling in for this game. But just to back up a little bit, we're at the time of year where everybody's banged up, and so maybe an opportunity to not play this weekend would have been fine, and then you get ready for December 20th. But now you go out there, you lay it all on the line, you go for the win, and you try to give yourself a month off, and then 3 games instead of 4 games. To your point, I agree completely. So there's a lot at stake, and thank God we ended up beating Georgia Tech, because if we hadn't, then this game was do or die for us. Now, I agree, both teams are in. It's just a matter of seeding at this point.
I think.
Yeah. So
Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, look, I think it's going to be probably 55-45, 60-40 Georgia. I mean, just not having to travel is a significant, advantage in terms of getting the fan base here. To Peter's point, scrambling from Austin, from Houston, from Dallas, wherever you're coming in from. I mean, Texas has more of a national fan base than Georgia does. There's probably more Texas or Texas fans living in Atlanta than there would be, Georgia and Houston or Georgia and Dallas. So that certainly helps them. Regardless, I unfortunately will not be there this weekend. I've got a nice golf trip, but I'm gonna have a little FOMO come 4 o'clock on Saturday.
I think what's neat about this game, and when you start looking forward to the playoff seeding, is my opinion is whoever wins this game is the 2 seed. And whoever loses this game, I think, is somewhere between 5 and 8. Texas probably closer to 5, Georgia probably closer to 8. But I do think that that's the farthest either team will drop. I just can't see. Again, I'm not putting anything past them, but I can't see the committee punishing the loser of this game to the extent that they now have to go on the road. Could be very wrong. I think that's how this plays out. So, looking at how this 12 teams are going to shake out, we've traded thousands of texts about this. I'm sure, Peter, you and your group has as well. It's really fascinating how this 12-team playoff has all come together and really made all these games so very interesting. I think that we all come to the conclusion that between 9 and 11 spots are spoken for, maybe between 1 and at most 2 or 3 are still up in the air. So who wants to take a stab at what the top 12 looks like and what games are going to determine who gets in there?
So I have 8 teams that we can name that are definitely in, 3 other spots that are claimed, and that leaves one kind of wild card out there. So we got Oregon, Penn State, Indiana, and Ohio State from the Big Ten. We got Georgia, Texas, Tennessee from the SEC. Notre Dame, I think, probably gets the 5 seed, and they're playing really good football right now. Then you get the Big 12 winner, which is what Iowa State and Arizona State. Arizona State's playing really good ball too. The ACC winner is in. I think SMU may be in no matter what happens. It just depends if Clemson beats them, or does Miami get a spot if SMU wins, and then you get the Boise UNLV winner. So let's just assume that chalk holds this weekend. That would leave that 12th spot open for a Miami Alabama debate to get the 12th spot for the tournament.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's pretty accurate. I'm excited for SMU. They bought their way into the ACC. It's a cute little school in Highland Park, and for them to get in year one, Rhett Lashley, I mean, certainly has to be up for Coach of the Year.
So if it
Yep.
comes down to Miami versus Alabama, which I don't disagree, it very well could, where do y'all see that going? And then secondary to that, why does Alabama get the nod automatically over the other three lost SEC teams, Missouri, South Carolina, Ole Miss? They sure have something to say about it as well. So two-part question. Whoever wants to take it, take it.
Well, I think you can go ahead and throw Missouri out. They don't have a chance. I think it would be between Alabama, South Carolina would be the SEC debate. Alabama beat them head to head. South Carolina's probably playing the best football in the country right now. Lenora Sellers guy he's a problem. And he's going to keep South Carolina. As long as he stays at South Carolina, they're going to be really good, I think, next year as well. But I think Alabama, just based on the head to head versus South Carolina, gets the nod. But I think if you're just going to go look at resumes, and we've seen the committee, they like to focus on the loss column. Miami only has 2 losses. Now, granted, it's Georgia Tech and Syracuse, but I think that Miami would get the nod over Alabama. But who the hell knows if they're going to go off? They're just going to go off brand, which they've been known to in the past. Then it's Alabama. So I could wrap myself into a major tizzy trying to figure this one out.
Well, Lawrence, you brought up a good point though with Miami. Their 2 losses are to Syracuse and Georgia Tech, and honestly, as of December 2nd, those losses don't look that bad. I mean, Syracuse finished 9-3, and Tech finished 7-5, I believe. And everybody saw the game on Friday night. I think people think a little bit better. So, looking back, those 2 losses aren't terrible. Now, look, Miami got lucky a few times throughout the season, uh, but I think Alabama's loss to OU in Norman is disqualifying at that point. So I think Miami will get the nod over them, but we'll see how much juice Greg Sankey has.
What do you think, Peter?
Yeah, well, if y'all beat us, then that kind of helps Alabama's strength, the quality win, right, over y'all. I don't know
Mhm.
if that moves the needle more than a couple percentage points, but maybe something. Because I'm just looking at the ESPN odds. I mean, they've got Miami at 24% and Alabama at 30% based on whatever their AI tool. So I don't know where they're getting that from because neither of those teams play this weekend. But I think Lawrence, I kind of agree with your assessment of the whole thing. Boise and the Iowa State, Arizona State winner would be the 11 and 12 seeds. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy though. If you would have, at the beginning of the season, I would have said guaranteed there are 4 SEC teams in, probably 5. Right? No, obviously, I didn't have Indiana coming out of the Big
Mhm.
Ten to take one of those spots. But I don't know. Look, I bitched about this week in and week out. They're going to have to tweak that thing. I don't want to see
Mhm.
Alabama in because everybody knows they mind fuck Georgia. But that being said, I think Alabama would beat Indiana 9 times out of 10, and Ole Miss would as well. Should Ole Miss and Alabama would probably beat Penn State 9 out of 10 times or 8 out of 10 times. So they're really going to have to take into account, the SEC's murderer's row, right? I mean, you can't put the same weight for the Big Ten or the ACC, and that's just going to be something that Greg Sankey's going to have to put his foot down in the offseason, and they're going to have to figure something out.
So as a Georgia fan, I don't want to see Alabama get that 11th or 12th seed.
Right.
And I think we all can agree on that. I mean, regardless of what we saw in Oklahoma, regardless of what we saw in Nashville, like there's something about Alabama that we do not want to see in December or January. Peter, there's a guy named Brandon Adams who is our kind of Georgia's version of the talking head guy, does a daily Georgia podcast. Um, and today he said that he thinks there are four, maybe five teams that could win the national championship, and he included Alabama as one of those teams, right? And I think that he's probably right. And the other one he included was Ohio State, and we haven't even mentioned the disaster they had in the shoe at home against Michigan. I mean, what do we think about Ohio State now? I mean, I hold them in a little different regards because of what they did in the game against Georgia a couple years ago. Really impressive, but I mean, they lost to Oregon. It was a close game, albeit it was close. Uh, are they that impressive? I mean, they looked absolutely awful against Michigan, but they automatically get to walk in the playoff. They'll probably host a home game.
They will, but also you're forgetting. I agree with you, right? It's a little PTSD, but remember who their quarterback was when we played them that night, and
And their
what he's
wide
doing.
receiver, I know, but still.
And look at their wide receivers right now. They probably have the best set of wide receivers in the country. I haven't really kept up that much with Judkins, what he's doing at running back, but their defense is pretty stout. I kind of agree with Brandon Adams. I mean, I think the teams that could win the national championship are Georgia, Texas, Oregon, Ohio State. I don't really see anybody else. I don't think Alabama will be in it. I don't see anybody else that's got. Can Tennessee get really, really hot? Maybe. I just think Nico's a turnover machine. So I really think it's those four that could win the national. One of those four teams will win the national championship. I'm going out on a limb. I'm going to put my balls on the line.
Well, back to Ryan Day. That guy, I think he is going to find his ass firmly planted in the hot seat for his inability to beat Michigan. The fact that they couldn't beat this Michigan team that doesn't know how to use the forward pass, he has a Michigan problem like we have an Alabama problem, probably multiplied by 10. They totally shit the bed and they cost themselves an opportunity to get a first round bye. But now on the flip side, they're going to say they get 3.5 weeks to get healthy and do whatever. But they are a scary team if they can get out of their own way. They gotta not play. I think they just went full mental against Michigan. There's no reason they should have lost that game.
No.
Yeah, I think all the talk on Day, his fan base is kind of starting to turn on him. And in the days of NIL and transfer portal, young men start looking, maybe start thinking about other places if their coach is going to be gone or they're going to be hearing about it all next year or he's going to shake up his staff. I think that's a lot of disruption for them.
Fun fact though, the only member of the Ohio State 2021 recruiting class that has beat Michigan is Quinn Ewers.
Saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
crazy.
very good.
Oh,
Very good. So let's transition to your picks last week, Laurence. You made it to the post and you sent us your selections, albeit they didn't do great. But let's get your recap.
So the sucker bet 3,000 had a little bit of a malfunction last week as Georgia did not cover. We got the win, but we did not cover. So I think that gets back to 500 on the season. Obviously, you got a smaller slate of games coming up this weekend. There really is only one game that kind of jumps out as being somewhat suckery, and I'm a little bit hesitant to take it because the sucker bet 3,000 computer does not take into account the fact that James Franklin cannot win a big game. But Oregon minus 3.5 looks a little too easy. So if I had to pick a game, which I will, I think Penn State covers the 3.5 and Oregon wins a squeaker in the Big Ten championship.
That's not giving you a lot of room there, for the backdoor cover. And I totally agree with you that James Franklin shits the bed when the lights are on. And he was just blessed with, a nothing schedule this year. So Godspeed, Laurence. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, I hate it. I don't like that pick at all, but it's the only one out there that even kind of qualifies with my criteria, my algorithm.
Taking James Franklin over Dan Lanning is a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for you.
Yeah.
What's the line on the Georgia-Texas game? I saw 1.5. Is that where we're currently sitting?
I'm looking at 2.5 on ESPN right now.
2.5.
2.5 and over. 2.5 and an over under 49.
Mm-hmm.
How do y'all see this game playing out? We'll start with you, Laurence, and go around this way. Laurence, Peter, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's hard to tell with this Georgia team. You never know what you're going to get. It's a roll of the dice. I think the dogs come out. I think Texas is going to be the ones playing with some nerves in this game, and I see Georgia winning this game. Let's call it 27-24. And we get the two seed, and we get some time off to prepare for the Sugar Bowl on what was December 31st or January 1st.
Yeah, of course, I'm going to go with Texas. I do think the wild card, though, is what Sark does. You know, if he how open that playbook's going to be. I think our defense will be good. So I'm going to err on the side of assuming he's going to pull out all the great stops and Quinn's going to kill it. And when Arch comes in, he does his thing. I think defense will clamp down. So I'll go. I mean, we hadn't scored a ton of points, even against Kentucky and A&M last week. So I'll go 24-20.
I like it. We're all kind of in the same boat. I think it is. I think the defense will play pretty well. I like some of the confidence that Carson Beck has. I'm also going to go a little bit of a reversion to the mean in the sense that our wide receivers can't keep sucking as bad as they sucked. They've got to actually, and Arian Smith actually did play well against Texas. Our tight ends are starting to come around. Hopefully, Texas is pretty stout against the run game these days, and we haven't really done much on the ground. I like Georgia 26-23, Laurence, right by you. We're all kind of the same. And I like the under. I was going to go 27-23, but I like the under at 49.5. So I'm going 26-23 dogs.
You know, in the third quarter of Georgia Tech game, when things looked terribly bad for us, I started feeling really confident about the Georgia versus potentially at that time we didn't know who the opponent was going to be, but Georgia versus Texas game. I felt like that's how sports work. You know, you come out and you lose a game at home you're supposed to win. You bounce back next weekend and win a game you're going to be an underdog at that you have to win to make the playoffs. I still feel confident, though not quite as confident about Georgia going in here. I can see this game going lots of different directions. I think Georgia jumps out quick and jumps out ahead in this game. I just have that feeling. Maybe what you're saying, Laurence, is right that Texas is a little more nerves, a little more cautious. I don't know. I'll be there, and I expect to be there in my seat till the very, very end, and to watch this game come down to the very, very end. I think, Peter, on y'all's podcast, I predicted a field goal as time expired to beat y'all. It was a little more handily than that, the victory, but I'm going back to that and saying it's going to come down to the end, kick a field goal, dogs win. Everybody leaves there somewhat happy, I suppose. Everybody's going to the playoffs, and who knows, maybe we see each other for a third time, which would be absolutely wild.
A rubber match, if you will. Peter, you got any big plans? What do the plans look like for Atlanta?
I'm getting in late Thursday night, and then because I usually have to be situated, I'm a mediator, so most of them by Zoom. So I got to be situated in front of a computer Friday. The players' moms all go out to lunch that starts at like 11:30 and ends right about the time dinner starts.
That's awesome. Good
So
for
they're
them.
yeah, the benefit of having some New Orleans moms on the team now.
Tell the
And then
location. Jason's going to show up there. He's going to start going buy tequilas for everybody.
yeah,
Yeah, if I
good.
wasn't out of town, I'd come to Cherokee Town and Country Club. I'll host.
Okay, sounds good. But yeah, Friday night we typically go see the boys. You know, we do something early, dinner, see the boys at the hotel, turn in early, and then I don't know. We're probably stay downtown Atlanta. We're kind of spread out, Midtown, downtown, Buckhead. We'll figure out some place, meet up, and then
It's very weather dependent, right? I mean, we've been in these games before where it was freezing the first week of December,
mhm.
and there are some bars and restaurants around Mercedes-Benz. That becomes a decent option. Lots of times we'll be off property. Like we've gone to Jason's house before and just taken Ubers down right before the game and just avoided the mess. Or it could be a nice day, and there's actually some decent lots. Home Depot's got a great lot that if you can get a spot in, is a great place to tailgate. So there's lots of different options, and I would just say for our perspective, it's always weather dependent.
Yeah, it looks. I just looked up the weather because you're right. It looks to be about a high of 50 or 53, and depending on what time you get out there, it could be a little chilly. But downtown Atlanta is not all that great. There's more in Buckhead or Midtown, a lot more in Buckhead, and then Midtown there's a lot there as well. The good thing is, even from my house in Buckhead, it's without traffic 15 minutes, with traffic 25, and then Midtown's even closer. But getting out of there is not easy if you've got to get an Uber or something. But it's all pretty walkable. So I think y'all will have a really nice time. And
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend checking out Magic City. They're famous for their wings. It's a good spot, not too far from downtown Atlanta. You'll get a kick out of it. I will be in Savannah for a soccer tournament. I believe we have reservations at the local Bolero to watch the SEC championship game on Saturday afternoon. So I hate to miss you, Peter, but if there is the trilogy round three, hopefully we can all meet up in person and toast a little bit and have a good time.
Yeah,
I'll try. Go
where
ahead.
is the national championship game in New Orleans
In
this
Atlanta.
year? Atlanta. Okay, back to Atlanta. Good. Okay, we'll do it.
Yep.
yeah.
So I am taking the route of we're going to be tailgating off property, off site, and then taking a car in, getting there probably 30 minutes before kickoff. So Peter, I will try to catch up with you, but I will not be running around outside the stadium beforehand. Not that it's not a bad option, it's not what we're choosing to do. Before we break hands, we got to get you on your Jimbo of the week. Name somebody and let's see where they land.
Yeah, it's going to be quick. I didn't have anyone that stood out, so I had to crowdsource this one, and we talked about it quite a bit. And this one, Ryan Day, who I believe has been the Jimbo of the Week before, but losing to Michigan, I believe for the fourth year in a row, with a supremely talented team at home, is coaching malfeasance. And our friend Tom Ludlam actually gave me a stat. I remember he brought it up in real time, but I believe it was 3rd and 2 in the red zone. And with a minute 55 to go, Ohio State trotted out 12 people out of a timeout, and then tried to take another timeout after that. Just totally blew it away. Got another penalty, and the guy just can't get out of his own way. Laurence, I totally agree with you. I think his ass is going to be toasty next year. You could go 11-1, but you can't lose to Michigan. That can't be the one year in and year out. I think they're going to look to move on. And he's just squirmy, like, I don't know. He's just not very an appealing person. That being said, I'm catching a flight to Columbus, Ohio tomorrow morning for my first trip there ever. I'll present it to him in person.
I'm sure I'll be happy to see you. All right, guys. Well, appreciate y'all hopping on tonight. Peter, thank you for coming on at quick notice. Hope you have a great time in Atlanta. Hope your son plays a great game, but comes up a little short on the scoreboard. And nothing will make me happier than us playing for a third time back in Atlanta, January, what is it, 20th? Inauguration?
20th.
Is that what it is? So, all right, guys. Unless there's anything else y'all want to say, we're good to go. We always finish up with Go Dogs. You want to say hook 'em horns, whatever. We're not going to stop you.
Hook 'em horns.
All right. See you guys. Thank
Go
you all for
dogs.
listening.
Enjoy.
And until
Appreciate
next
it.
time, as always, keep
Go
chopping.
Dogs, baby.
Go Dogs. See you guys.